Gunung Padang is an oddly beautiful site in Indonesia that has perplexed and fascinated scientists in equal measure for a century. Recently, new excavations took place, and they threw up some incredible possibilities that may rewrite the history books in terms of the world's oldest known civilizations. Equally, though, some experts believe the claims may have little basis in fact and could even be dangerous for the archaeological community. Has the world already changed and it just doesn't know it yet? Let's try to find out. Unusual structures in Indonesia may be part of the world's oldest pyramid. In the West Java province of Indonesia lies Gunung Padang, which translates as Mountain of Light. To the untrained eye, the site looks like a huge green hill, with hundreds of large rocks strewn over its surface in a seemingly haphazard fashion. But look more closely, and you may start to see patterns. It was first discovered in 1914 by Dutch settlers, who believed it to be a megalithic site from prehistoric times. Perhaps, they surmised, these were the scattered remains. In 2023, journalist Michael Turtle explained the process of getting to Gunung Padang. It's way off the beaten path. On his website Time Travel Turtle, he explained, from Jakarta, it takes about 4 hours in a car to get there. He continued, although the distance isn't so great, the roads get clogged with traffic as we pass through small towns, and we're forced to slow down as we wind through uneven volcanic terrain. The last hour is on an unsurfaced rocky path. From the car park at the bottom of the huge hill, it takes 20 minutes to hike your way up to Gunung Padang. Turtle revealed, at the top, the building blocks of an ancient construction lie scattered across the grass. He continued, they are shaped like long rectangular bricks, maybe about 2 meters in length on average, and they are heavy. These are not man-made like bricks, though. Each piece is solid rock and was forged by a volcano in a time long ago. According to an Indonesian volunteer worker, locals believe these rocks emanate their own particular kind of energy. The man tried to explain to Turtle that it was all to do with magnetism, but the journalist didn't really catch his drift. Still, Turtle did add, I try to sense whether there is some power coming from them. He then admitted, I'm certainly impressed when he leads me over to 2 special long rocks and shows me how they make musical sounds when you hit them in the right place. As Turtle traveled higher up Gunung Padang, though, he described how the hill rises in a series of terraces, each marginally higher than the last, before it reaches a peak with more strewn rocks. This section was populated not by locals seeking to pay their respects, but by workers drawn there by a controversial archaeological study. As Turtle put it, the quest to find the truth is anything but peaceful, with a furious differing of views and a complicated mix of politics, money, and national pride at stake. You see, in October 2023, Danny Hilman Natoajaja, an Indonesian Institute of Sciences archaeological researcher, published a paper which argued the site is not what people think. He claimed, this study strongly suggests that Gunung Padang is not a natural hill, but a pyramid-like construction. He continued, the pyramid's core consists of meticulously sculpted massive andesite lava, enveloped by layers of rock constructions. Dr. Natoajaja then went on to make a claim which, if true, would alter core beliefs about our ancient history. In his paper, Dr. Natoajaja divided Gunung Padang into different units based on when he believed each part of the supposed pyramid had been constructed. He claimed the oldest construction, Unit 4, likely originated as a natural lava hill before being sculpted and then architecturally enveloped during the last glacial period between 25,000 and 14,000 BC. He continued, afterward, Gunung Padang was abandoned by the first builders for thousands of years, leading to significant weathering. Around 7,900–6,100 BC, Unit 3 was deliberately buried with substantial soil fills. Dr. Natoajaja continued, approximately a millennium later, between 6,000 and 5,500 BC, a subsequent builder arrived at Gunung Padang and constructed Unit 2. Lastly, the final builder arrived between 2000 and 1100 BC, constructing Unit 1. It is intriguing to note that during the construction of Unit 1, the top layer Unit 2 likely remained relatively intact and well preserved. He added, however, in a peculiar turn of events, Unit 2 was subsequently buried, possibly to conceal its true identity for preservation purposes. As a result, Unit 2 now lies concealed beneath Unit 1. In plain English, the most important aspect of Dr. Nato Ajaja's theory is the time period he has claimed for Gunung Padang's earliest construction. Saying it may have been built as far back as 25,000 BC suggests that the pyramid is as much as 27,000 years old. That would make it significantly more ancient than the earliest known Egyptian pyramid, which is around 4,600 years old. However, it would also mean it's older than the oldest megalithic site in existence, Turkey's Göbekli Tepe, which scientists peg at around 11,000 years old. According to Dr. Nato Ajaja, Gunung Padang being so much older than any other ancient sites also changes everything we know about the technical capabilities of ancient man. He told the journal Nature, the pyramid has become a symbol of advanced civilization. It's not easy to build pyramids. In his paper, he elaborated, the builders at Gunung Padang must have possessed remarkable masonry capabilities, which do not align with the traditional hunter-gatherer cultures. He added that his findings suggest advanced construction practices were already present when agriculture had, perhaps, not yet been invented. Naturally, such enormous claims tend to attract scorn from some quarters, and Dr. Nato Ajaja has encountered more than a few detractors in the decade he has been excavating Gunung Padang. For example, Cardiff archaeologist Flint Dibble told Nature, "I'm surprised the study was published as is." Another archaeologist named Lutfi Yandri told the outlet his work has revealed humans lived in caves between 6,000 and 12,000 years ago, and none of his findings have ever suggested those ancient people were capable of such advanced stonemasonry. Heck, some of the experts involved seem genuinely outraged by Dr. Nato Ajaja's theory. Way back in 2013 when he first suggested it and began digging around at Gunung Padang, a scientist who wished to remain anonymous had poured cold water on the entire idea in the same way as Dr. Yandri. In fact, their objection sounded so similar to Dr. Yandri's that perhaps it was someone from his team speaking to the Sydney Morning Herald, or, at the very least, someone doing very similar research. They said, in the Pawn Cave in Padalarang about 45 kilometers from Gunung Padang, we found some human bones and tools made of bones about 9,500 years ago, or about 7,000 BC. So, if at 7,000 BC our technology was only producing tools of bones, how can people from 20,000 BC obtain the technology to build a pyramid? They added, in archaeology we usually find the culture first. Then, after we find out the artifact's age, we'll seek out historical references to any civilization which existed around that period. Only then will we be able to explain the artifact historically, continued the anonymous scientist, who then made quite an incendiary accusation about the integrity of Dr. Nato Ajaja's scientific practices. They claimed, in this case, they found something, carbon dated it, then it looks like they created a civilization around the period to explain their finding. Rather than taking offense at such words, though, Dr. Nato Ajaja refused to back down, telling the Herald, it's a strong case, but not an easy case. We are up against the world's belief. How exactly had Dr. Nato Ajaja come to his radical conclusions, though? Well, by 2013 he had already become convinced that most of Gunung Padang was man-made over the course of millennia, and he had worked his magic on Indonesian President Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono too. After he'd briefed the president on his theory, he was bestowed a government task force to continue his research. It was dubbed a task of history, of important value for humanity. The leader of the country even offered to get the army's resources involved. Dr. Nato Ajaja was soon given more than $300,000 from the Education and Culture Ministry's endowment to fund an excavation. What's more, he was told he had unlimited funding to follow if he needed it. Some fellow archaeologists weren't happy about both the money and the methods used on site. Desril Riva Shanti of the Bandung Archaeological Center told the Jakarta Post that the excavation should have been conducted slowly and with small tools. Instead, Dr. Nato Ajaja had enlisted soldiers to use hoes to dig quickly through the earth. Regarding the money, Shanti bemoaned the obvious difference in resources allocated to the Gunung Padang project versus others. For example, the first installment of Dr. Nato Ajaja's funding amounted to Rp 3 billion, around $250,000, but her archaeological center was only awarded Rp 4.6 billion for all its projects, and this included paying her employees' wages. She complained that her research at the Poin Cave had only been given enough funding to cover a 2-week stint with 6 team members, far from the blank check Dr. Nadoajaja had been given. Critics already weren't happy about Dr. Nadoajaja's methods, and that was before he and politician Andy Arif suggested enlisting the help of civilian volunteers to help with the excavation. This plan was dubbed the Red and White Glory Operation in Gunung Padang. It was petitioned against by people who argued that it threatened the careful preservation of the entire site. After all, having hordes of regular folks stomping all over delicate historical materials sounded like a recipe for disaster to many. Regardless of the controversy, Dr. Nadoajaja forged ahead in his mission and began investigating what lay beneath the surface using a variety of techniques. According to Live Science, ground-penetrating radar surveys, X-ray tomography, 2D and 3D imaging, core drilling, and excavations were all used to get a glimpse below ground. They identified a 4-layer structure, which began with a meticulously sculpted core of cooled lava at the center, with a layer of rocks closely resembling brick. These layers were carbon-dated by the National Atomic Agency Laboratory and the Beta Lab in Florida, using soil wedged between rocks drilled out of the mountain. This was what led Dr. Nadoajaja to his controversial conclusion that Gunung Padang may be older than the Egyptian pyramids. Over time, the team discovered more layers encompassing an area of 150,000 square meters and noted the odd shape of the top of the hill. Dr. Nadoajaja told Live Science, "It's not like the surrounding topography, which is very much eroded. This looks very young. It looked artificial to us." Seeing beneath the surface with radar and X-rays suggested to Dr. Nadoajaja that Gunung Padang was actually a large pyramid-like structure with separate rooms, steps, and terraces. He told the Herald, "The structure of the building is very good. It's been defined by many lines of the geoelectric surveys, even 3D, even ground-penetrating radar, and core samples." He continued, "We conclude that the archaeological site, the arrangement of these columnar joints, has laminated the entire hill, so it's 100 meters thick. We also think it's not just one layer of building, but multiple layers." One of the most intriguing things to come out of the site's tomographic analysis was the potential discovery of empty spaces, possible hidden chambers within the structure. In his paper, Dr. Nadoajaja wrote, "A high-resistive anomaly in electric resistivity tomography aligns with a low-velocity anomaly detected in seismic tomography, indicating the existence of hidden cavities or chambers within the site." On top of that, he added, drilling operations revealed significant water loss, further supporting the presence of underground spaces. Naturally, the team planned to explore these spaces in more detail. Dr. Nadoajaja wrote, "It is essential for future research to undertake comprehensive and systematic excavations employing advanced geophysical imaging techniques, and directional drilling can prove instrumental in exploring underground structures, including potential chambers. In the event of encountering a chamber during drilling operations, the use of downhole cameras can provide valuable visual documentation." He also wanted to conduct more extensive radiometric dating studies, as that would contribute to obtaining precise age estimates for the constructions, enhancing our understanding of their historical timelines. In the end, Dr. Nadoajaja's contention that the rocks, arranged like bricks on top of the mountain, are evidence that the pyramid is man-made has been challenged, though. Dr. Dibble, for one, is adamant that Dr. Nadoajaja has found nothing conclusive. Instead, he believes the arrangement was simply caused by the weather and natural movement of the rocks over millennia. Even the fact it's in a pyramid-like shape means little to him, as he told Nature, material rolling down a hill is going to, on average, orient itself. Naturally, Dr. Nadoajaja pushed back against Dr. Dibble's naysaying, telling Nature that many of the rocks are so enormous that he found it unlikely that natural weather patterns could have shifted them. He claimed, "The neatly arranged, shaped, and massive nature of these rocks, some weighing up to 300 kilograms, dismisses the likelihood of transportation over significant distances." He also felt the structure didn't feel randomly assembled by the elements, saying, "This object's regular geometry and distinct composition and its materials unrelated to the surrounding rocks signify its man-made origin. Another expert in the no column was Southern Connecticut State University archaeologist Bill Farley. He didn't feel Dr. Nadoajaja's study made a persuasive argument that the supposed structure proved that an advanced society existed during the Ice Age. For one thing, though he conceded the soil may have been accurately carbon dated, he noted there was no mention of it containing evidence of human interaction. For example, he would have expected bone fragments or charcoal to have been mixed in with the soil. Finally, Dr. Nadoajaja claimed to have found evidence of an ancient version of cement, which held the rocks of Gunung Padang together. Studies showed it was composed of iron, silica, and clay, and he took this to mean ancient humans had enjoyed access to iron melting equipment long before the Iron Age. Volcanologist Sutikno Bronto didn't buy it, though. He told the Herald that similar compounds have formed naturally over the years. He felt this was especially likely in this case, as his theory on Gunung Padang has always been that it is the neck of a buried volcano. Unfortunately for Dr. Nadoajaja, all the negative academic reaction to his paper has triggered an investigation by Archaeological Prospection, the journal that published it. From his perspective, though, he felt he hadn't done anything ethically wrong, and he claimed he'd never wanted his theories to cause bad feeling in the archaeological community. As he told Nature, "We are really open to any researchers around the world who would like to come to Indonesia and do some research program on Gunung Padang. We know very little about our human history." At the end of the day, though, the consternation caused by Dr. Nadoajaja's claims mean little to the people working at Gunung Padang every day. Indeed, when Turtle spoke to a local archaeologist, he was unconcerned by the controversy around the age of the mountain. Turtle chuckled. He points to a cluster of rocks arranged in a square shape at the top of one of the terraces. They look like they could be little walls. Maybe that was used as an altar, I suggest. Maybe, he replies. He doesn't know either. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.